we need to talk about recruiting.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Petar Majstorovic has entered the transfer portal. Let's talk about it. Hello, everyone. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. What are your thoughts on Petar Majstorovic entering the transfer portal? There's the good and there is the bad. Okay, we're going to talk about it all here on this mini podcast, all right? Unscripted, no notes really whatsoever other than the tabs that I have in front of me showing some basic stats, okay? Because we need to have an honest talk about recruiting, whether it's from Europe or out of high school. Here's the good part. Syracuse basketball trimmed out all the fat from a year ago. I told you all at the end of the season, really even before the end of the season, that as long as you're not J.J. Starling or Donnie Freeman, it makes no difference to me whether or not you stay or leave Syracuse basketball in the transfer portal. And that's literally what happened. Syracuse basketball, they kept J.J. Starling and they kept Donnie Freeman. Huge for this offseason. Absolutely enormous as they try to make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2021. Huge. That's good, right? They said goodbye to Kyle Cuffe. They said goodbye to Chance Westry. Sayonara, Chris Bell. Elijah Choppa, you didn't do that much as a true freshman. Goodbye. Petar Majstorovic, you were okay. You're a glue guy. 3 points, 13 minutes a game, had a positive Evan Maya defensive grade of 0.86. I wish him nothing but the best. I wish all the transfers nothing but the best. So they trimmed out the fat. That's the good part, okay? I'm not going to sit here and be outraged that they lost Petar Majstorovic in the transfer portal, and it makes no difference to me whether or not they nudged him out the door or he decided to leave or it was maybe a combination of both. Doesn't really matter. He's gone. Okay, maybe he returns. You could always return to your original team in the transfer portal. Maybe that does happen with Petar Majstorovic. That's kind of the good part, okay? It's not that big of a deal. The bad part is, what is the point of recruiting guys out of high school or in Europe that are not your blue chip slam dunk prospects? What's the point? I don't get it. If you're just going to say goodbye to them after a year or they're going to say goodbye to you after a year, you're not going to turn down blue chip guys. Okay? Sadiq White wants to play for you. Kyan Anthony wants to play for you. You don't say no. You say yes. Come to play for Syracuse. That's good, right? That's in the 2025 class, which, by the way, ranks top 10 in the country on 24/7 Sports. But then you get into the other guys. Luke Fennell, 4-star on 24/7 Sports, but not in the top 100. And other recruiting services have him as a 3-star guy. Aaron Womack, multiple recruiting experts have told me, and I've told you all, that he's a developmental guy. It's going to take him a couple of years to develop. Why are we recruiting those guys? If after a year or two, they don't do anything, that they're developmental and they need time to develop. If you're just going to say goodbye to them when they don't show you much right off the bat. That's kind of where I'm concerned right now. And I will explain more next on Locked On Syracuse. March Madness is here. In fact, we have reached the Final Four, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and we are reacting to Petar Majstorovic entering the transfer portal. It's not that big of a loss, but it does beg the question, what is the point of recruiting guys out of high school or out of Europe that are not your blue chip, slam dunk caliber prospects? I don't see the point in putting the time or the effort into recruiting those guys if you're not going to sit and wait and be patient for them to eventually develop. It doesn't make sense. The 2024 class, you said goodbye to Elijah Choppa more. I get it. But you gave up on him after a year. Petar Majstorovic, I get it. You gave up on him after a year. Let's go to the 2023 recruiting class, all right? As 24/7 Sports loads for me. You only got one guy out of high school, William Patterson. He didn't play at all. And he entered the portal after a year. Not a blue chip guy. What is the point if they're just going to leave after a year, or you're going to nudge them out the door after a year? 2022, oh, this is when it gets really good. When Syracuse recruited 6 players out of high school. They are all gone. All gone. Judah Mintz, 2 years, was good enough to go pro. Chris Bell, portal after 3 years. Justin Taylor, goodbye. Quadir Copeland, goodbye last year. Malik Brown, that was the stinging one. And Peter Carey. Let's talk a little further about those guys, okay? Who was a blue chip guy? Judah Mintz was blue chip on 24/7 Sports. And actually right below him was Chris Bell, ironically. Chris Bell was the second best player in that recruiting class. Justin Taylor. Okay, he did not work out no matter what. Fine. Then you got Quadir Copeland. He did work out. You nudged him out the door after 2 years. Malik Brown. He did work out. He stunningly entered the portal after 2 years. Peter Carey did not work out. You said goodbye to him. Fine. My point is that if these guys are not blue chip recruits, I don't really see the point in recruiting them anymore when you are going to say goodbye to them after 1 year. What are your thoughts on that? Comment in the comments section below. I'm not going to sit here also and pretend that you can't build a team through high school recruiting anymore. Syracuse basketball should not recruit out of high school. That's nonsense. Okay, that's also nonsense. There's no one correct way to build a team. You can build a team primarily of transfers. You can do it a little bit of both. You can do it mostly of high school recruits, where you develop them and groom them over a series or over years, kind of the old school method. You could do that too. But Syracuse basketball now needs to decide what it wants to do going forward, how they want to build their teams, how they want to recruit guys in high school. Because you know what my vision is for next year? Aaron Womack is a developmental guy. He's going to get 1 year here at Syracuse. It's not going to do much. And then he enters the portal. You wasted all that time and effort to recruit him, and he left. Same thing with Luke Fennell. Who's to say that can't happen with him? Or dare I say one of your blue chip guys leaves after a year? It's not that I'm against high school recruiting. But unless you're one of these elite players, I wouldn't go after him anymore. That's where I'm at with it. So Petar Majstorovic enters the portal. Not mad that he entered. I just don't understand really the direction of Syracuse basketball going forward with high school recruiting. I would love to hear from you in the comments section below. As far as what's coming up on the podcast in the future, tonight I had to move back the full podcast a little bit. It'll come out at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll talk about the guys that Syracuse is interested in and whether or not they can shoot or defend. Of course, I'm talking about the transfer portal. And then on Tuesday night, it will be a little bit later than usual as well. 24/7 Sports insider Mike McAllister is scheduled to join the podcast to talk more about Syracuse basketball in the transfer portal. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. You can find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really like the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse so this channel can grow and reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And I will see you all again really soon.